Guys the Geek here, and today I'm going to be doing another one of my every something Doctor Who stories reviewed video, all that jazz. Today we're going to be looking at the modern Doctor Who specials. So this mostly comprises of the Christmas specials, and I want to do this because I rewatched the majority of them, all but like two of them, over December, and I want to talk about them. But this will also include any New Year specials, anniversary stuff, and any other years where they had specials broadcast. So 2009, 2022, those specials. I'll just talk about them all in this video. But yeah, I've realised that obviously I've done Christmas special rankings and I've done reviews for some of the other ones when they've been broadcast, like the Chibnall specials and whatnot. But I've realised there might be some that I haven't really properly talked about, and I think I ought to, because there's some really good ones and some not so good ones. But yeah, let's just get my opinions out of these Doctor Who stories. But yeah, it is just those main specials. So minisodes don't count. Charity specials for comic relief and children in need don't count. Time Crash doesn't count. If I have one of you twits in the comments saying, "Oh, you forgot Time Crash," I will not be a happy camper, as the kids say. Oh yeah, and it's also my opinion. I feel like a broken record saying that, to be honest. But yeah, it's just my opinion. If you disagree with it, cool. If you agree with it, cool. Just say what your opinion is. That's awesome. But yeah, let's get into the list.
Kicking off, we have the Christmas Invasion. Now, I've said a lot about this story. I did a review of it with Ronnie on a podcast. It was like half an hour long, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. But basically, I don't really like this one. I don't like how Tennant's regen is handled, like the whole post-generation angle. Don't like that. I think it's, you don't get enough of him, and it's like too little, too late when he does turn up near the end. The Christmassy stuff has always felt shoehorned in for me. The plot with the Sycorax and the whole blood control thing and Harry Jones getting involved is cool on paper, but honestly feels kind of overshadowed, and because of the whole post-regen angle, that it feels kind of wasted and hollow at the end of the day. I mean, there are some cool moments here and there. There's I like some of the stuff near the end, but overall, I just find it a really quite dull affair. 5 out of 10 for me. It's just not a massive fan, to be honest. Sorry. Next up, we have the Runaway Bride, which I always used to describe as the Christmas Invasion Mark II, but now I would describe it as the Christmas Invasion on steroids, because they are quite similar, the kind of stories, and they do share a lot of the similar faults, but overall, the Runaway Bride just feels more refined and just a better Christmas special, in my opinion. Like, of course, I don't think it's perfect. I mean, the Christmas stuff like the Santa robots and the exploding balls are dumb as anything. The Rachnos is an even worse villain than in the Christmas Invasion. It's just a kind of naff villain despite looking kind of cool. And there are points in the episode where it can sort of lose me at points, but overall, I just enjoy it. It's exciting with moments like the taxi chase, which for me is one of the best sort of big, bombastic Doctor Who action set pieces that we've ever had. It can be quite heartfelt with stuff like the scene with Donna seeing the birth of the universe. That was quite touching. And it can be also quite dramatic and impactful, like the scene with the Doctor, the first signs of the Time Lord victorious when he's going to leave the Rachnos to die, and Donna has to intervene. It's like, you can stop now. That's a great, impactful moment, and the kind of seeds planted for what we would get with Waters of Mars and the Time Lord victorious kind of stuff. I think it's really good, and it's the kind of version of Tennant that I like. He's underneath the egotistical, handsome, dashing hero is a man who can be very dangerous. There's something incredibly sinister underneath, and I really like that. And overall, just seeing Tennant and Tate bounce off each other is just really fun, even if it is probably their weakest. Obviously, they're not as refined as they are in Series 4. That doesn't matter. I still find it enjoyable, so I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I do honestly quite enjoy this one, a lot more than I used to. Voyage of the Damned now, which is one of the few that I didn't rewatch because I didn't have time, but I've watched it that many times that I know my opinion on it, and that being, it's the best RTD Christmas special. It is genuinely great, and it's so fun. It's like a proper disaster movie. It feels very big budget and cinematic. The action set pieces are excellent. The whole vibe and kind of aesthetics of the Titanic but in space, I really like it. I love the ensemble of characters, whether it's Astrid, played by Kylie Minogue. I think she's really fun. There's some other really cool, quirky characters like Banner Flatter, Mr. Copper, Rixton Slade, that arsehole who survives. He's quite funny, I think. And also, it's quite brutal. Like, so many of the characters get killed off. It's quite brutal, so the stakes are still there. The angel robots are pretty freaky as well, admittedly. But for me, the main drawback of the episode, and it always has been for me, is the main villain, Max Capricorn. He's a bloody head in a box with a gold tooth. I mean, I don't mind goofy campiness in Doctor Who, but I think because it's the main villain and I can't take him seriously one bit, that does knock the episode down a few pegs for me. And the whole Space Jesus thing when the angels literally lift the Doctor up is a bit dumb and on the nose. But overall, I just have fun with this one, and it's just a real blockbuster kind of story. So 7.5 out of 10, I really get a lot out of this one. The next Doctor is a special that exists. I don't really like it. Like, other than Jackson Lake, played by the great David Morrissey, he gives a great performance, and I love the very tragic backstory with the character and how he lost his family and whatnot, and, he thinks he's the Doctor. That's a really cool concept, and Jackson Lake is a great character, I think. But overall, the Victorian London setting is fine, Miss Hartigan is fine, the Cybermen are fine, and the ending's quite nice, actually. The very last scene where the Doctor's invited to Christmas dinner, that's quite a nice little wholesome little scene. But, I just don't find it that interesting at all. And the climax is dumb. Like, why the hell doesn't Jackson Lake get to be involved? Why isn't he the one who gets to save his son? And why doesn't he get to fly in the blimp TARDIS? No, not the blimp TARDIS, the hot air balloon TARDIS. Why doesn't he get to help out in the climax? He just stood there. Come on, that's just, why? It's stupid. I just get absolutely nothing from this story. So, 5.5 out of 10, it's just so bland for me. Planet of the Dead. We're now out of the Christmas specials temporarily with an Easter special, and Planet of the Dead's another episode that exists that's really not any good. I think my tolerance for mediocre, generic, bland tripe has really reached a new low. I get absolutely nothing from this story at all. There isn't really a standout scene other than the bit when the Doctor says Happy Easter and he has the Easter egg. There's none of the characters are really that fun. I used to like Malcolm a lot. Now I'm kind of indifferent on him, and he can, I don't know. Oh God, Christina is actually a really obnoxious character. I can't lie. She gets on my nerves. She really doesn't. She's just, I do not like her, and it's the most bland sci-fi stuff you can ever imagine. The Tribals, they're so these bug-eyed monsters, and you've got these bloody, what they called the stingray things. I don't know what they're called. They're in a desert and there's a London bus that goes through a wormhole, and it's the most generic sci-fi tripe that you could offer up. And the production history of this story is actually really interesting. The fact that they literally finished it 2 days before broadcast, but it just feels so rushed and tired. After 4 seasons of constant production, it was we need something to get out in 2009 to tide fans over, and this is what we get. I'd rather, if I was a fan in 2009, I'd rather we just not had anything, because it's quality over quantity. It just feels tired at this point. So 4 out of 10, I do not like this one. I didn't realise I'd have this much to say about it, but yeah, the absolute worst of the 2009 specials. I'm confident in calling The Waters of Mars the absolute best story of this bunch, and one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever made. However, it is the most difficult story to watch for me. I struggle to watch this at points. Not just because of how scary the Flood can be, because they are a terrifying monster. The fact that they can kill you and take you over with just one drop of water, something we need to survive, is a horrifying concept. But it's the Time Lord Victorious stuff and how it's been built up throughout all these years. The Doctor lost his people. He can't interfere with time. He can't save them. He's always having to do the right thing to preserve history. But seeing the moment where he hears all the screams of pain and dying, and he can't take it anymore, and seeing the moment where a man just snaps and loses it all, that's really difficult for me to watch as a viewer. The fact that we see a man's breaking point visualised like that is tough to watch. And when he comes back and all the strange creature starts playing, it's not heroic, it's shallow, it's artificial, it's hollow, and it's not victorious at all. And just seeing everyone so scared of him when they go back to the present day, and the fact that Adelaide goes and kills herself just to preserve history. This story goes to some dark places, but it gets away with it. It's not in poor taste at all. On the contrary, it shows the struggle of the Doctor and what he has to go through. It's Tennant as the lonely god that I love him as. This is the side of Tennant that I love the most, and it's so impactful. It's just incredible.
In addition to all of that, the side cast are phenomenal, especially Lindsay Duncan as Adelaide Brooke. The production design, the realisation of the Mars is fantastic, and just overall, it's just a masterpiece of an episode. It's like, for me, it's like the Grave of the Fireflies of Doctor Who. Even though I haven't seen Grave of the Fireflies, I just know it's kind of disturbing. But, you know, it's an incredibly profound, moving piece of drama, of media, that I don't want to feel how it made me feel again. It gets a 10. Now we have David Tennant's final story, The End of Time. I'm reviewing both parts 1 and 2 here. I don't like it. It's overly long, it's bloated, it's self-indulgent with the whole, you know, it's the end of his era. It's really self-indulgent in that regard. The whole goodbye thing at the end is ridiculously long and drawn out. Tennant's like the whole, oh, it feels like dying, I don't want to go, it's not fair. That whole thing, it's irritating. He's so mopey and he's so bloody mopey. I don't like it. It's just, this is not how you handle, like, the passing of the torch. It's just so whiny and just arrogant. I just don't like it, and I never will, okay? I never will. I know this is like, I know Tennant's a flawed character. I don't like it here, okay? Like in Wars of Mars and the whole Time Lord Victorious thing, you know, his ego and his almost hero complex in a way, it's what makes him a compelling, flawed character. And it also, because it stems from that whole pain of the Time War spilling out, that repressed pain that he can't save anyone, and it's far more interesting than just he's arrogant, he's vain, he doesn't want to go, he's a mopey emo. It's just, for God's sake, it's ridiculous and not complaining. He just looks like an arsehole. That's not the only thing, though. John Sims' Master in this story, not his performance, but the character of the Master in this story is the worst interpretation of the Master we've ever had, in my opinion. He's just like, he's like bloody weird blue skeleton man, he's shooting lightning, he's flying up in the air, he's shouting dinner time, which is not remotely scary at all, it's just cringeworthy. I'm pretty sure My Neighbour Totoro had more of a fear factor than John Sims' Master here. Christ, that's 2 Ghibli references in a row, what are the odds, eh?
What are the odds?
Those cactus people are stupid. They're just like B-Tech Meglos. The Master's plan to put his face in everyone is just pathetic. What else is there? There's the regeneration I've never liked. I don't want to go. It's cringy. I don't like it. The only things I do like in this story, okay, Mega Chad Bernard Cribbins as Wilf, because it's Wilf, for God's sake. Timothy Dalton as Rassilon. I love Bond, and I love Dalton's performance in this. And Murray Gold's music is actually particularly standout here. Some of his best work, but overall, 4 out of 10. However, it's better than Planet of the Dead because at least it has good things, and at least it's an interesting story that does not make me feel completely dead inside. Now on to the Stephen Moffat era with my favourite Christmas special of them all, A Christmas Carol. I mean, you know, it's an adaptation, obviously, of the Charles Dickens classic novel, and to be honest, I overall prefer Moffat's more headfirst into the fantasy. Like, I appreciate that kind of just going all out on it, and I love this adaptation of A Christmas Carol. I mean, A Christmas Carol, you know, ghosts of past, present, future, a story playing around with time, that combined with Doctor Who is just a match made in heaven. It's genius. I also love that despite being a very human-centric story in terms of this narrative and the character relationships, it's very alien. It's set on an alien planet, there's a spaceship crashing, and there's like little details like the flying fish, which admittedly don't make the most sense, but it's not very intrusive detail. It more adds to the very alien quality of the world, and it's great world building in my opinion. And the characters and the adaptations of these different Christmas Carol aspects, you know, like Michael Gambon as the Scrooge-type character, Sardic, he's fantastic and just a great performance. The child actor who plays the kid Kazran, he's one of the best child actors that I think Doctor Who has ever seen. He was fantastic, and the teenage Kazran was also very good. Katherine Jenkins as Abigail, although the character could have been perhaps a bit more developed, I think. There's a certain charm to her. I think she's, amazing singing as well. And just, you know, the romance between her and Kazran, it's quite simple but very endearing, and it has a certain charm to it, as I say. Just the charm of seeing them all going through space and time on Christmas Eve, and it's just really quite lovely and wholesome, and I really love watching it. And the atmosphere, the direction looks really nice. It's a really nice looking story overall. It looks brilliant. And I think what really elevates this one for me is the twist near the end of who the ghost of Christmas future really is. Like, it is genius, and the resolution, it's so heartwarming, you know. Obviously, they obviously acknowledge the fact that Abigail is going to die, but instead of moping about it, they embrace it and spend that Christmas day together to the fullest, and it's just a beautiful message to send home to kids and whatnot. It's just a beautiful story, and the ending quote from the Doctor, you know, what was it? Everything's got to end, otherwise nothing will ever get started. A beautiful note to end on. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I love this story so much.
Going from my favourite Christmas special to my least favourite Christmas special and the worst special on this list, in my opinion, The Doctor, the Wheel and the Wardrobe. I detest this story. I cannot stand it. It's just, for me, unpleasant to watch as well. I just detest it. Right, let's get my big bugbear out of the way first. For me, the main issue I have with this story is the tonal whiplash. You know, you've got this fantasy, and it's an adaptation of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which is a really shoehorned in kind of literary reference. You know, it's not nowhere near as natural as it was in Christmas Carol. But anyway, you know, you've got these fantastical, you know, snowy landscapes and the tree people, and Matt Smith, like, is as if he's drank a bottle of Lucozade with so much energy, and Murray Gold's music as well, and the kid actors as well. And you've got Bill Bailey in it for some reason at one point as well. Then you've got the whole thing of Madge's husband dying in World War II and keeping it from her kids. So you've got this scene where Matt Smith's giving them a tour around the house, and he's all bouncing up and down and whatnot, being so energetic. And then, the scene immediately after, it's Madge saying to the kids, go out there, and having a heart-to-heart, and telling confiding with the doctor about it. And it's just like, you go from one extreme to the other, and it's just like, it's not pleasant to watch. And I think the fact that it is also like real world history, World War II, it sours the experience for me a bit more. But the real kicker for me as to why I despise the story is near the end when Madge has to fly the mothership home with Thornton. That's a dumb as hell pun, the mothership. Oh, how cringy. I hate that. But it's when that's how the kids find out on accident, basically, because it's, you know, it's the memory of her, you know, losing him in World War II and whatnot, and it's kind of, that's what drives them home, basically, that memory, that love and whatnot. And that's what it is. That thing of him dying in World War II in a World War II airplane is nothing more than a plot device to get them from point A, the snow planet, to point B, Earth. And that I cannot stand. That is horrible to watch for me. Right, what else do I not like about the story? Matt Smith, I appreciate the energy, but you really need to tone it down here. This is probably his weakest Doctor Who performance for me. The kids are really irritating, especially Cyril. Like, he's so one note, and it's just stupid. I can't stand it. The whole, oh man, the wooden people is stupid. The fact they get those Androzani major people, and they're just completely wasted, like Bill Bailey. It's ridiculous. It's so boring. Like, I genuinely fell asleep when rewatching this, so I had to boot it up again and go back to where I'd left off. It's just, I cannot stand this one. I hate this one. 2 out of 10. I want to move on. Now we've got the Snowmen, which is a really weird one because it's in the middle of a series, and really, I also really don't like this one at all. Like, oh man, it's so boring and dull, and it's just so dragged out. I know a lot of people like the Victorian Clara. I don't, and her accents are really irritating. I mean, what else we got? We got the Snowmen, the actual titular Snowmen. They're such a non-presence in this story. The Ice Lady is really irritating. The Paternoster Gang, especially Strax, don't do anything for me. They really don't. The Ian McKellen and Richard E. Grant are completely wasted. Like, Ian McKellen literally voices a snow globe, for God's sake. The resolution of the you know, it's a family crying on Christmas, and that's dumb. The one-word test scene is dumb. Like, that's one of the moments, like, one of the few moments for me where Stephen Moffat comes across as, like, really pretentious with trying to be so clever. But it doesn't make any remote sense. It's so contrived, and it's so obnoxious for me. I can't stick this story at all. However, I do like the Victorian aesthetic, and Matt Smith as the Doctor is great. I love his kind of grieving phase. I love that side that we get from this, you know, after Amy Rory's loss. I do really like that part, but other than that, 3 out of 10. I really don't like this one at all. Also, I forgot to mention this with Doctor, the Wheel and the Wardrobe because I was getting so annoyed at that story, but the ending scene with the Doctor going back to Amy Rory's house is beautiful, and it's the only reason I give it a 2 instead of a 1. So yeah, back to the rest of the video now. Now we have the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor. There is not really anything else I can add to this one. It's Day of the Goddamn Doctor. Who doesn't love this one? Yes, it plays in your nostalgia. Who cares? It's a celebration, man. Like, you got Zygons, Daleks, Tennant and Smith play for just so well. John Hurt is awesome. Billy Piper as the Moment is great. Unit, it's cool seeing all the references and whatnot to the past. The Zygons, as I say, were great. The Time War looks badass. It looks so nice in an episode. All 13 Doctor saving Gallifrey's amazing. The Capaldi's cameo, Tom Baker's cameo. It's just a fan's dream. And it was also one of the first Doctor stories I ever watched, so that's got something to do with it. And it's easily on this list the most enjoyable story of this bunch. So 10 out of 10, and I can't believe that this story's going to be 10 years old this year. Good God. Now we have Matt Smith's swan song, The Time of the Doctor, which is a weird one. I do enjoy it, maybe in a kind of guilty pleasure, ironic way, but it's weird and really flawed. Okay, the first half of the story really ain't that good. Like, the humour is genuinely painful, and there's no delicate way to put this, but why is this story so horny? Like, with the naked gag of the Doctor and Tasha Lem flirting, and it's just like, Moffat, calm down. What was going on with that? That was just weird, and not in a good way at all. Like, it was... Also, like, Tasha Lem, I really don't find remotely interesting as a character, and the wrap-up of, like, Matt Smith's really complicated era at times ain't great. Like, I like the Cracking Time being the Time Lords, I'm happy with that, but the whole silence, the Church of the Papal Mainframe, is not... It's not well resolved, I don't think. However, I can enjoy it on a sort of base sensory level, you know, sort of seeing these different spaceships and aliens and Daleks and Cybermen and Sontarans and whatnot, and, you know, seeing the Doctor protect this town called Christmas and seeing them face against all these different monsters. It's entertaining. Like, I do find it entertaining, and what really works is, like, the last 20 minutes is, like, the emotional stuff. So you've got the Doctor's Cyberman companion Handles, which his goodbye is really touching. The regeneration of this story, I think, is the only one that has ever made me well up. I do get emotional like that, and that speech, you know, the always remember the people it used to be, is a beautiful speech that can be applied to anyone's life. But the bit that gets to me the most is when you first see the Doctor as the old man. That is all, God, like 2,000 odd years on his face right there. That is the Doctor at the end of his wit, and it's something, it does actually bring a tear to my eye. That does. It really does. I can't describe it. And although kind of goofy, I love how triumphant it is when the Doctor finally blows up that Dalek spaceship with a regeneration energy. I just love it. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Like, I can enjoy it on a kind of base sensory level, but the story is a complete mess. Guys, I have a revelation for you, and it's more shocking than the Timeless Child reveal. I think that the Capaldi-era Christmas specials are my favourite of all of modern Who. What? Yeah, Space Jesus, I'm just as shocked as you. Anyway, here's Last Christmas. Okay, this is definitely Capaldi's weakest special, and I think it's definitely not perfect at all, and it can be a bit boring at times, but I'm growing on this one because the stuff that works really shines. Okay, let's get the negatives out of the way. Right, Nick Frost as Santa, and he's with his elves, right? I don't care that you got Nick Frost to play him. It's still really poor. It's really out of place in the much darker tone, and it just doesn't work at all. Like, they're not even remotely funny or charming, and it's just kind of cringeworthy. And I also find the side characters on the Arctic base really irritating. The fact that Clara is back again, and, you know, you could have had a great exit of her in this story, but they bring her back in Series 9, it kind of renders that a bit hollow, and at times it can just feel a bit boring and kind of lack the substance with these cool ideas, but the stuff that works really does work. I like the darkened tone of this one, and I like the more horror angle, you know, the face huggers, not the face huggers, but the crab, the dream crab thing, sorry. Yeah, they're like the face huggers in Alien. I think they work really well, and I like the darker tone because it feels very in tone with Series 8. It feels like a nice coda to that series. I also adore the Clara dream sequence when it's like that you've got on the chalkboards, you are dying, and it's like written all over the place, and then like Danny Pink's there, and it almost feels like it's a way of kind of getting over grief, especially at Christmas time. It's meant to be a happy time of the year, but she's trying to grieve over Danny Pink, and I think it's a really effective way to do it, and I wish the story was centred more around that, and the dream crabs could have been a nice kind of like sort of framing device, and I think it could have worked wonders. But overall, I don't know, I think what is good about this story is brilliant, but I wish they'd embraced that more. Although I tell you what, I do love the ending when they're on the sleigh, like Capaldi letting his head down really for the first time in the show. Love that. Love the ending with the Doctor and Clara, you know, the old Clara. I like that, even if it's kind of undercut by them returning in Series 9. What can you do? Probably a 5.5 out of 10, leaning towards a 6, honestly. Going from his worst special to his best, The Husbands of River Song, which is an absolute blast of a story. It's kind of feels almost like a Christmas pantomime, which is a common thing in the UK at least. But it's that's kind of the Christmas element of the story, and so it doesn't feel quite as ham-fisted as some of the earlier like RTD specials or even some of the Matt Smith ones, to be honest. But yeah, it's also really funny. It is hysterical. I am jealous of this episode's comedic timing, whether it's from all the performers or just these scenarios like the
like Capaldi faking the TARDIS reaction, you know, he gets to it's the bigger on the inside. That is comedy gold, man. And also you got Greg Davis, you know, Mr. Gilbert from the In-Betweeners himself as the villain. And I do like the Hydroflex. I think it's a pretty cool villain. There's still that fear factor, and the design is actually pretty cool, and the voice is pretty cool. But yeah, I do really like him as a villain. I mean, the bits when he gets Nardole and Ramon and like kind of basically cuts their heads off and like sticks them in, and like it's like he's pointing a gun at his own head, but it's not him. It's kind of creepy. I think it really works. I also really love how alien this story feels. It's not set on Earth, and you know, that's refreshing. I like stories that are not always on modern day Earth. I want more of that, please. And Capaldi and River just have such great chemistry. Like I think, miles better than Matt Smith and David Tennant, because I think obviously because of their ages, they're a bit similar. You know, they're similar ages. I think they feel more like an old married couple, and it just feels more natural. And the banter and the heartfelt moments, it just feels so much more genuine, and I love it. Admittedly, when they go onto the cruise ship, I do find the plot does slow down a bit. You know, the different like bankers and dealers and the Harmony Shoal people with, you know, guns and... No, that's Dr. Mysterio, isn't it? I think it slightly loses me there at that point in the story, but I still quite like it. It feels quite fancy, and I do really like it. And then the ending when they crash the ship on Beryllium, and then the Doctor takes her over to the Singing Towers, which was foreshadowed in the Series 4 Forest of the Dead story, and just that whole epilogue is absolutely beautiful. It almost like genuinely brings a tear to my eye. It's genuinely beautiful stuff, and it's a great closure to River's story arc, and just see it's wrapped up so well. And please don't bring River back, because this is the perfect ending. It's just, again, it's that thing that the Christmas Carol does. It doesn't shy away from the fact that this is the end, but it celebrates it and embraces it. It's just spending time with those that you love, and it's just beautiful. So I'm going to give it a very high 8 out of 10. Next up, we have my very first Doctor Who story live, the 2016 Christmas special, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, which, honestly, I really like, and nostalgia definitely plays a part in it, but I do just really enjoy it. I like the superhero homage and the kind of pastiche. It's not anything deep. It obviously takes influence from the whole Superman, Lois Lane, Clark Kent kind of stories. It's charming. I think it's quite charming how kind of low-key and whatnot and simplistic it is. I enjoy it. I also quite like how low-key the Christmas angle is in this episode. I think it's quite refreshing just to not have Christmas shoved down your throat, like constantly. I think superhero films are quite nostalgic. Like I do remember when I was a little kid, I remember the Christopher Reeve Superman films often being played on TV around the festive season. So there is that sense of nostalgia there. I think Stephen Moffat said that he felt nostalgic to those, films around Christmas time and whatnot. So I think it works as well. And, the rapport that everyone has, like, it's good. The comedy is quite fun. Like, Capaldi is amazing. There are some absolute zingers in this episode in terms of, like, the one-liners. Nardole is much better in this one than he was in Husbands. I enjoy Grant and Lucy. Like, they're very simple, as I say, but I enjoy them. It's very charming. It's just pretty fun, I think. The villains, the Harmony Shoal, I really like them. They do remind you of those kind of classic comic book villains, the brains in jars and the guns inside their heads and whatnot. It feels very kind of 60s pulp sci-fi, kind of popcorn movie sort of cinema. I quite like that. I think the overall episode, it's really charming, this episode. On the more negative side, visually, I don't think this episode is that great. I don't mean just like poor visual effects, although some of them are a bit ropey at points, but overall the direction does seem quite flat at points, and aside from the odd moment here and there, it does feel quite flat, I think, and also the resolution is a bit kind of, I don't know, it's a bit sort of flat and anticlimactic, but the actual ending with, the Doctors, everything ends, and that's always sad. That moment is beautiful, and it's always stuck with me, and I just love the whole, it feels like a great bridge from Series 9 to Series 10, and just like, this is the start of a new era, specifically my era that I grew up with. So 7 out of 10 I'll give it. The sexist First Doctor is bad. That's bad. The 60s weren't the most progressive time, but the Doctor was not a sexist back then. So, Moffat, what was that all about? Oh yeah, that's the only pretty much negative thing I have about Twice Upon a Time. Like, overall, there's something quite magical about this story that I find. I love going back to it, and just, that nostalgia that I have for it, I just love it. And the thing is, I often hear people complain that there's not much of a plot, but that's kind of the point. It's an epilogue to the Stephen Moffat era. You had the big bombastic, spectacle finale with the Doctor Falls. That was the point of that story, and this is an epilogue, calming down. And not every story has to be the grand saving of the universe. It's an introspective character piece about the Doctor, and you know, he doesn't want to regenerate, not because not because it's like whiny and like the Tennant, like David Tennant, but more because he's tired and he's that old, and it's like, is it worth it to just keep on going? Like, do you need to stop? And then he meets his former self, which I will say, sexist stuff aside, the first Doctor is really well performed, and the interactions are very funny. And, you know, seeing, you know, what, you know, the impact that the Doctor can have, and just, especially in the ending with the Captain as well, it's that motivation to keep him going. It's not always about the evil plan to stop. It's always about like helping people, like in the World War II armistice, you know, like helping the Captain, saving another life, as opposed to, you know, blowing up an evil base and whatnot. I just think that's really lovely. I will admit though, the whole stuff on Villain Guard with the Dalek stuff, that's a bit pointless and a bit aimless, but I can overlook it. And Mark Gates' Captain character, he's great. And the final 20 minutes from like the Doctor and the Doctor, watching the Christmas armistice all the way to the you know, through Capaldi's goodbyes with Bill Nardole and Clara to the Great Regeneration, it is just absolutely beautiful. Especially the Christmas armistice scene. It is genuinely just, yeah, that is beautiful. Like, I love it. So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 overall. I'm surprised, but I really come around on this one, to be honest. I did do a full episode review of Resolution like a year ago, but overall, banger Dalek story. Chibnall can write the Daleks really well here. Jodie gives a great performance here, her first great one in the show. Graham is still funny. The music's awesome, the direction's awesome. Ryan and his dad's subplot, that's actually really good. It's just the structure that's a bit odd. Yaz is still kind of pointless. Charlotte Rich is awesome. And overall, it's just a really fun blockbuster kind of story. So 8 out of 10. I'm going to be brief with these Jodie ones, to be honest. Revolution of the Daleks is flatter than Diet Coke. Yes, it might look nice. Yes, it might have some nice moments with the companions, but still, it's such a waste of potential. It's just dull and lifeless. Even at the time, I remember feeling disappointed, but I kind of just sort of was in denial in a way. I mean, the Doctor in prison, that goes nowhere. Companions spending 10 months on Earth and that informing their decision to leave, that could have been expanded upon more. The whole political intrigue of the motivation behind building these new defence drones, that could have been expanded on more. Like, it's just a pretty spectacle with flashing colours and lights and visuals, and it looks nice. That's all this episode's got. 5.5 out of 10. It's boring. Eve of the Daleks is a nice palate cleanser and a nice calm down after the madness of Flux. And you know what? I quite like it. It's not groundbreaking, and I think the Phasmin stuff ain't great. Although, in this episode, it is good. It's good, but it's just how it's built upon that just kind of ruins it. But I like the Daleks. I like the comedy. I like, what's her name? Sarah. Aislinn B's really funny. Nick is a bit weird. He's kind of sus. I'm not going to lie. He's a bit weird. But overall, like, I enjoy this episode. So 7 out of 10. Can't believe I just said sus in a video. Legend of the Sea Devils is absolute garbage, and I've never felt so deflated after an episode after this one. And the fact that Chris Chibnall said in a recent DWM interview, the fact that he didn't really want to make this episode, it was just the BBC forced him to make another special just to get something out this year, just sours the experience even more. It is just, it's ugly, it's poorly plotted, poorly made, rushed. The Phasmin stuff, it is so just, is appallingly done. Like, oh, you're the best person I know. Based on what? 3 out of 10. Let's just move on with our lives, please. I'm not sure that I can properly judge Power of the Doctor retrospectively yet, because it's been, you know, so recently. I think maybe wait till like it's been a year since this story, and then I can properly judge it. But overall, it's an absolute blast, even if the story's a bit of a mess. Like, that's putting it mildly there. But the nostalgia stuff is great. The Master is amazing. Jodie's Regeneration is awesome. 8 out of 10. It's just a lot of fun, this one. But that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, I will see you later. Bye-bye.